The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, translated into 23 Earth languages simultaneously. It was an invitation, embossed with symbols that seemed to shift and glow on every screen that displayed them. The Galactic Concordat, a collection of 47 civilized species spanning 12,000 star systems, formally requested Earth's presence at the Grand Peace Summit. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the United Nations Assembly Hall, holding a printed copy of the invitation. She had requested paper specifically. There was something reassuring about holding actual documents during moments that would shape history. Around her, representatives from every nation murmured in excitement and barely contained nervousness. "They want to meet us," she said simply, and the room erupted in cheers. 3 months later, the UNSS Venture departed from Luna Station with humanity's first interstellar delegation aboard. Elena had spent those months in preparation, studying every scrap of information the Concordat had provided about their cultures, their history, and their customs. She had assembled a team of Earth's finest: linguists, scientists, cultural experts, and artists. Captain James Chen commanded a small military honor guard, 20 soldiers in dress uniforms who would represent Earth's defensive capabilities. "Keep it simple," Elena had told her team during their final briefing. "We're the new kids at school. We smile, we learn, and we show them that humanity deserves a seat at the table." Captain Chen had nodded seriously. "We're bringing standard defensive armaments only. No capital weapons, no planet crackers, nothing aggressive. Just enough to show we're not completely helpless." Elena had appreciated his restraint. The last thing they needed was to appear militaristic to species that had maintained peace for 3,000 years. The journey through the gate network took 6 days. Human observers marveled at the ancient structures, vast rings of exotic matter that bent space itself, allowing instantaneous travel between distant stars. The Concordat had built thousands of them over millennia, connecting their civilizations in a web of commerce and culture. Harmony's reach appeared on their view screens like a jewel floating in the void. The station was enormous, easily 50 kilometers across, built in concentric rings that rotated slowly to provide gravity. Crystalline spires rose from its surface, catching the light of the nearby blue giant star and scattering it in prismatic displays. "Holy hell," someone whispered behind Elena, and she couldn't disagree. The docking procedures were smooth, guided by Concordat officials who spoke perfect English through their translation devices. As the airlock cycled open, Elena straightened her suit jacket and stepped forward to meet their hosts. The welcoming committee was led by Chancellor Zixthara, a being composed entirely of living crystal that refracted light in dizzying patterns. She, the translator, assured them. The Chancellor used feminine pronouns, stood nearly 3 meters tall, with geometric facets that shifted and rearranged as she moved. "Welcome, humans of Earth." Zixthara's voice resonated directly in their minds, translated by implants the Concordat had provided. "You are the newest voices in the great chorus of civilization. We hope this summit will mark the beginning of a long and prosperous friendship." Elena bowed, as protocol demanded. "Chancellor, on behalf of humanity, we are honored by your invitation. We come in peace and friendship, eager to learn from those who have walked among the stars far longer than we." The formal greetings continued as the delegation was introduced to representatives from dozens of species. There were the Velnari, who looked like enormous caterpillars covered in iridescent fur. The Toth, floating spheres of contained plasma that communicated through color shifts. The Kreoth, insectoid beings with 6 limbs and compound eyes that glittered with obvious intelligence. And dozens more, each stranger than the last. Captain Chen stood at attention as his honor guard was inspected by a Concordat military observer, a lean reptilian creature called Cyrex, who seemed impressed by their discipline. "Your warriors stand well," Cyrex hissed through his translator. "Though I notice they carry weapons. Is this customary?" "Ceremonial sidearms only," Chen explained, gesturing to the sleek pistols at their hips. "Standard for honor guards. They're non-lethal settings only. As requested." "Dawn." Cyrex's head tilted. "Non-lethal? Curious." We shall speak more of military traditions later. I think. The humans were given quarters in the station's outer ring, spacious rooms with viewports that looked out onto the cosmos. As Elena unpacked her belongings, she received a message from Earth. Her daughter's face appeared on the holographic display, grinning widely. "You made it, Mom. Everyone's watching back home. Don't screw this up." Elena laughed. "Thanks for the vote of confidence, sweetie." That evening, the summit officially began with a grand reception in the station's central amphitheater. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy mingled beneath a dome that displayed the swirling colors of the nebula beyond. Music played, though Elena couldn't identify any instruments. Food and drink flowed freely, carefully selected to be compatible with each species' biology. Elena found herself in conversation with a cluster of scholars, explaining Earth's location in what they called the Orion Spur. They seemed politely interested, asking basic questions about human civilization and technology. "We've only had fusion power for 60 years, Elena admitted, "and FTL travel for less than 5. We're still learning." One of the scholars, a floating jellyfish-like creature, pulsed with amusement. "All youngling species say such things. But you have made contact, and that is what matters." The Concordat welcomes all who seek peace and cooperation. As the evening wore on, Elena felt a growing sense of optimism. These beings were strange, yes, but they were kind, welcoming. They had built a society spanning thousands of worlds without war, without conquest. Humanity could learn so much from them. She found Captain Chen standing near one of the viewports, watching the stars. "What do you think?" she asked. He smiled slightly. "I think we're a long way from home, Ambassador. But maybe that's exactly where we need to be." One. Neither of them noticed the security scanners analyzing their biosignatures, cataloging human capabilities, and flagging anomalies for further review. Neither of them saw the concerned looks exchanged between certain delegates when they learned what humans considered normal gravitational conditions on their homeworld. The summit had only just begun, and already, calculations were being made. The cultural exchange sessions began on the third day of the summit. Each species was invited to present their history, achievements, and values to the assembled delegates. It was meant to foster understanding and celebrate diversity. Elena had prepared carefully for humanity's presentation. She wanted to be honest, but diplomatic. The truth was important, but so was making a good first impression. She stood before the amphitheater. Thousands of alien eyes and sensors focused on her. The holographic display behind her showed images of Earth. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in familiar patterns. "Humanity's story is one of survival and adaptation," she began. "Our world, Earth, has tested us repeatedly. Ice ages that covered entire continents, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, asteroid impacts that caused mass extinctions. Each time, our ancestors endured." The audience listened politely. Several species nodded their approval at humanity's resilience. "We have not always been peaceful," Elena continued, and she felt the atmosphere shift slightly. "For most of our history, human tribes and nations fought each other for resources, territory, and ideology. We developed weapons of terrible power. We came close to destroying ourselves more than once." Now she had their full attention. The translator implant in her head buzzed slightly, picking up subvocal murmurs from the crowd. "But 70 years ago, we chose differently. We saw the edge of the abyss and stepped back. We unified our governments, eliminated our weapons of mass destruction, and turned our efforts toward the stars. We are still learning to be better than we were." She finished her presentation to polite applause, though she noticed several delegates whispering among themselves. Chancellor Zixthara's crystalline face was unreadable, but Elena sensed concern in the way the light refracted through her form. After the formal presentations, the summit organizers had arranged friendly competitions. Each species could demonstrate their unique abilities in a safe, controlled environment. It was meant to be fun, a way to break the ice and show mutual respect. The Velnari demonstrated their incredible strength, lifting massive weights with ease. The Toth showed their ability to generate powerful electromagnetic fields. The Kriath performed aerial acrobatics that defied physics. When it was humanity's turn, Captain Chen and his honor guard volunteered. They started with a simple demonstration, a basic military obstacle course set up in one of the station's training facilities. "This is just our standard physical fitness test," Chen explained to the gathered observers. Nothing special. The humans moved through the course with practiced efficiency. They climbed vertical walls, swung across gaps, crawled under barriers, and sprinted between obstacles. Their movements were fluid and precise. The alien observers watched in growing silence. "How long can they maintain this pace?" Cyrex asked, his translator barely concealing his disbelief. "This is actually slower than our normal pace," one of the human soldiers explained cheerfully. "We're being careful not to damage the equipment." A Velnari scholar consulted a datapad, comparing the humans' performance to known species. "They move like persistence predators." "How long can they run?" Chen shrugged. "Depends on conditioning. A few hours at this pace. Easily. Trained marathon runners back home can go for 26 miles, about 42 kilometers, in just over 2 hours." The silence stretched longer. Several delegates excused themselves quietly. Later that day, during a cultural meal where each species shared their traditional foods, the humans enthusiastically sampled everything offered to them. They consumed fermented plant matter that was technically toxic to most species. They ate proteins that required specific enzymes to digest. They even tried a crystalline compound that was meant only for silicon-based life forms. "Tastes like pop rocks," one of the human scientists announced, grinning. "Remember those from when we were kids?" Axon, the medical officer of the Concordat, a being called Dr. Vesh, who resembled a four-armed starfish, approached Elena in alarm. "Ambassador, your people should stop. Many of these substances are poisonous to carbon-based life." Elena checked her datapad, which showed real-time biometric data for all the human delegates. "They're fine, Doctor. Humans have very robust digestive systems. We evolved eating a wide variety of foods, including some that were mildly toxic. Our bodies got good at handling it." Dr. Vesh's skin changed color, a sign of deep distress. This should not be possible. The situation escalated that evening when a Toth delegate suffered a critical malfunction in their containment field. The plasma being began to destabilize, energy crackling across their spherical form. Other delegates backed away in panic. The human doctor, Sarah Kim, rushed forward without hesitation. She pulled specialized equipment from her medical kit and began working directly in the energy field. Her hands moving with practiced speed, despite the electrical discharge that made her muscles spasm. "Someone stabilize the external field while I recalibrate the internal harmonics," she shouted, not even flinching as arcs of plasma scorched her sleeves. 3 minutes later, the Toth delegate was stable. Dr. Kim treated her own burns with a casual efficiency that horrified the watching medical professionals. "Why did you not retreat to safety?" Dr. Vesh demanded. Dr. Kim looked confused. Someone needed help. That's what doctors do. But the risk was acceptable. Dr. Kim interrupted. "I've performed surgery during combat situations before. This wasn't that bad." That night, in a secure conference room far from human ears, Chancellor Zix Thara convened an emergency meeting of senior delegates. The station's artificial intelligence system presented its findings in cold, analytical terms. Human baseline capabilities exceed predicted parameters by significant margins. Physical endurance, pain tolerance, environmental adaptability, and threat response all register in the 98th percentile across known species. Toxin resistance is unprecedented. Behavioral patterns show predatory characteristics combined with pack cooperation strategies. A three-dimensional model of a human appeared in the center of the room, rotating slowly. Key features were highlighted: forward-facing eyes, omnivorous dentition, opposed thumbs, Bipedal stance optimized for running. Classification. Persistence. Predator. Tool user. Apex species. On homeworld. The AI paused, and when it spoke again, there was something almost like concern in its synthesized voice. Threat assessment. Class 7. Existential risk. Recommendation. Close monitoring and potential containment protocols. Class 7. The theoretical rating that no actual species had ever achieved. The classification reserved for horrors that existed only in worst-case scenarios and cautionary tales. Chancellor Zeek-Thara's crystalline form seemed to dim. They seemed so friendly. That, the AI responded, may be the most dangerous thing about them. Elena noticed the change in atmosphere over the next few days. Conversations became shorter. Delegates who had been friendly now excused themselves quickly. Invitations to informal gatherings dried up. She discussed it with her team during their morning briefing. Maybe we're being too enthusiastic? Suggested Marcus, one of the cultural specialists. We might be coming on too strong. Let's dial it back, Elena agreed. Be more accommodating. Show them we're team players. It was perhaps the worst decision she could have made. When the Concordat security chief mentioned concerns about station vulnerabilities, Captain Chen offered to help. He meant it as a friendly gesture between military professionals. He had his team run a basic security audit, the kind of thing human military consultants did routinely back home. They found 47 critical weaknesses in the station's defensive systems. 17 ways to access restricted areas. 12 methods to disable life support in specific sections. 8 vulnerabilities in the power distribution network. And they compiled it all into a helpful report, complete with suggestions for improvements. Cyrex stared at the datapad Chen had handed him, his reptilian face frozen in an expression that the translator couldn't quite interpret. You found all of this? In 3 days? Could have been faster, Chen admitted. But we didn't want to seem intrusive. We limited ourselves to passive observation and public areas only. Public areas, Cyrex repeated slowly. You found ways to disable life support from public areas. The atmospheric processing system has external access panels in the commercial district, Chen explained, pulling up schematics. Any moderately skilled engineer could access them. You should really move those to secured locations. Cyrex excused himself without another word. 30 minutes later, emergency security protocols were implemented station-wide. The cultural exchange took another unfortunate turn when the Velnari delegates asked about human entertainment. The request seemed innocent enough. They wanted to understand what humans found enjoyable. The human delegation set up a movie night in one of the station's recreational facilities. They chose carefully from Earth's cultural archives, selecting what they thought was a good variety. A nature documentary, a romantic comedy, and a popular science fiction film. The nature documentary started innocuously enough. Sweeping shots of African savannas, herds of gazelles grazing peacefully. Then, the lions appeared. The footage showed a pride of lions hunting. The chase, the takedown, the kill. The human delegates watched with academic interest, some making notes about predator behavior and ecosystem balance. The alien delegates watched in paralyzed horror. This is your entertainment? A Velnari scholar whispered, her iridescent fur standing on end. You watch creatures kill and consume each other? It's educational. One of the human scientists explained. Understanding predator-prey relationships is fundamental to ecology. And you find this enjoyable? It's nature, the scientist said with a shrug. It just is what it is. They didn't finish the film festival. The romantic comedy confused the aliens with its aggressive physical humor and what they perceived as barely concealed violence. They refused to watch the science fiction film after reading its description. Humans fighting an invasion by hostile aliens, using improvised weapons and guerrilla tactics. You fantasize about warfare? Chancellor Zeek-Thara asked Elena later, her crystalline voice sharp with concern. It's fiction. Elena tried to explain. Stories that explore hypothetical situations. They're not real, Crass, but you imagine them. You prepare for them. Your military captain mentioned that humans have contingency plans for various threats. Well, yes, that's just prudent planning. What threats do you plan for? Elena hesitated. This was clearly not going well. Standard scenarios, natural disasters, resource shortages, contact with hostile forces. Have you encountered hostile forces? No, but it's better to be prepared. You prepare for wars you have never fought, against enemies you have never met? Zixthara's light pulsed rapidly, a sign Elena had learned meant agitation. Ambassador, do you understand how this appears to us? Before Elena could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Her implant flooded with emergency notifications. There was a security incident in the human quarters. They rushed back to find Captain Chen and his honor guard standing over 3 unconscious alien forms. Station security surrounded them, weapons drawn but wavering, unsure what had happened. Report, Elena demanded. Chen's voice was calm, professional. 3 individuals entered our quarters without authorization. They deployed neural disruptors. We responded with standard defensive protocols and neutralized the threat with minimal force. Minimal force? Cyrex had arrived, staring at the unconscious aliens. They're in medical comas. They'll recover fully in a few hours, Chen assured him. Careful? Cyrex's translator was struggling to convey his tone. Our security footage shows you moving at speeds we believed impossible for beings of your mass. Your reaction time was measured in milliseconds. You disarmed and disabled 3 trained operatives in less than 4 seconds. Chen looked uncomfortable. Sir, they weren't very well trained. Their tactics were basic, predictable. Any combat veteran could have. Combat veteran? Cyrex interrupted. You have been in combat. Well, yes. Most of our honor guard have combat experience. That's why they were selected. You sent warriors, Cyrex said. And there was something like fear in his voice now. You said honor guard. You brought warriors who have killed. The silence was deafening. Elena felt the situation spiraling out of control. Captain Chen and his team acted in self-defense. We were attacked. Surely you understand. What we understand. Chancellor Zixthara had arrived, surrounded by her own security detail. Is that we may have made a terrible mistake inviting you here. Chancellor, please. An emergency session of the Concordat Council has been called, Zixthara continued. You and your delegation will attend. We must discuss what you are and what it means for the galaxy. As the human delegation was escorted not quite under arrest, but not quite free either through the station corridors, Elena saw the looks they received from passing aliens. Fear, suspicion, horror. They had come as ambassadors of peace. Somehow, in less than a week, they had become something else, entirely. In her quarters later, while they waited for the emergency session, Elena pulled up the security footage of the attack. She watched her people move with practiced efficiency, their actions a perfect dance of violence and control. She watched them disable 3 armed opponents without even drawing their ceremonial sidearms. She watched, and for the first time, she tried to see it through alien eyes, and she finally understood what they were so afraid of. The emergency session convened in the Grand Council chamber, a massive spherical room where delegates floated in designated positions around a central platform. Elena stood there alone, facing representatives from 47 species, each one looking at her with a mixture of fear and fascination. Chancellor Zixthara spoke first, her crystalline form refracting harsh light throughout the chamber. Ambassador Vasquez, this council must understand the true nature of humanity. We believed you to be a young species. Primitive, perhaps, but peaceful. What we have observed suggests otherwise. Elena took a deep breath. There was no point in deflecting anymore. What would you like to know? Everything. Zixthara said simply. Tell us about Earth. Tell us about humans. Tell us the truth. So Elena did. Earth is what we call a death world, she began. The classification didn't exist until we met you and realized how unusual our planet is. Our gravity is approximately 40% higher than the galactic standard. Our atmospheric oxygen content is considered dangerously high. Our weather systems are violent and unpredictable. Hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, floods, droughts. She pulled up holographic displays of Earth's climate, showing storms that dwarfed any weather system on most inhabited worlds. Our planet has tried to kill us repeatedly, she continued. Massive volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years. Ice ages that covered half the continents, in glaciers kilometers thick. Asteroid impacts that caused mass extinctions. And yet, life on Earth adapted, thrived, became stronger. A Velnari delegate interrupted. But intelligent life should have been impossible in such conditions. Should have been. Elena agreed. But here we are. Humans evolved in East Africa, in conditions you would consider hostile. We had to compete with predators larger and stronger than us. We had to survive diseases, parasites, and environmental extremes. We didn't have claws or fangs or natural armor. What we had were brains, hands, and endurance. She showed images of early humans, walking upright across vast savannas. We are persistence predators. We don't run fast, but we can run forever. We would track prey for hours, sometimes days, until they collapsed from exhaustion. Then we would use our tools, rocks, spears, anything we could craft, to finish the hunt. The chamber was silent. Elena continued. As we developed civilization, Earth kept testing us. Plagues that killed a third of our population. Wars over resources and ideology. We developed agriculture, medicine, technology. And yes, we developed weapons. Terrible weapons. She brought up historical footage, carefully selected. Armies clashing with swords and shields. Cannons firing. Tanks rolling across battlefields. And finally, the mushroom cloud of an atomic explosion. We created weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. Weapons that could end all life on Earth. And we came very close to using them. Sighed. The council members recoiled from the images. Why? Dr. Vesh asked, their voice barely a whisper. Why would you create such things? Fear, Elena said simply. Fear of each other. Fear of being conquered, enslaved, destroyed. Every nation wanted to ensure their own survival, and in doing so, we nearly guaranteed our extinction. Captain Chen stepped forward, having been granted permission to speak. But we chose differently. 70 years ago, after the third global conflict nearly destroyed us, humanity made a decision. We unified, we disarmed. We took all those weapons of mass destruction and dismantled them. You eliminated your weapons? Cyrex asked. Disbelief. Evident. Not eliminated, Chen corrected. We still have weapons. We still have militaries. But we redirected our efforts toward defense rather than conquest. We created the United Earth Alliance, a single government representing all of humanity. We focused our competitive nature on space exploration, scientific advancement, cultural achievement. Elena added, it wasn't easy. It took decades of negotiation, compromise, and trust building. We still have conflicts, but we resolve them through dialogue now. Not warfare. The last 50 years have been the most peaceful in human history. But you are still warriors, Zixthara observed. Your captain and his soldiers proved that. We are, Chen admitted. Evolution doesn't reverse in 50 years. We still train our militaries. We still teach combat skills. But now we use those skills for peacekeeping, disaster response, and defense against external threats. What external threats? A Kriath delegate buzzed. You had no contact with other species. Exactly, Elena said. We didn't know if we were alone in the universe. We hoped we weren't. but we prepared for every possibility. What if we encountered hostile species? What if we found threats we couldn't negotiate with? Better to be ready and never need it than to be helpless. She pulled up a data file, hesitating before opening it. You asked about our entertainment. Our fiction. Here's why it disturbs you. The screen filled with book covers, movie posters, and game titles. Horror stories, war dramas, survival thrillers, post-apocalyptic fiction, alien invasions, zombie outbreaks, AI rebellions. Every nightmare scenario humanity had imagined. We explore danger through stories, Elena explained. We imagine the worst possible situations and figure out how to survive them. It's not because we want these things to happen. It's because we want to be ready if they do. I11. It's Subercombody's life to subscribe. .rcom. 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 This is abnormal, Dr. Vesh stated. Most species develop stories of cooperation, harmony, shared achievement. We have those too, Elena assured them. But we also have these. Because on Earth, the species that didn't prepare for danger went extinct. We're descended from the ones who survived. An ancient being spoke then. One who had been silent throughout the proceedings. The archivist was old beyond measure. A collective intelligence housed in a crystalline matrix. When it spoke, time itself seemed to slow. I have seen this pattern before. The archivist intoned. 3 times in the history of this galaxy, species with your characteristics have emerged. Each time, they became scourges, conquerors, destroyers of civilizations. The council chamber erupted in worried murmurs. What happened to them? Elena asked quietly. 2 destroyed themselves through internal conflict. 1 was contained by the combined might of the Concordate, at great cost. They were quarantined to their home system, where they eventually died out from genetic stagnation. The archivist's attention focused on Elena like a weight pressing down on her consciousness. You are the 4th. The question we must answer is, will you be different? Elena met the ancient being's gaze, without flinching. We came here in peace. We've answered your questions honestly. We've shown you who and what we are. What more can we do to prove our intentions? Nothing, the archivist said. Intentions are meaningless. Only actions matter. And we have seen your actions. Chancellor Zixthara rose from her position. The council must deliberate. Ambassador Vasquez, Captain Chen, you are dismissed. We will summon you when we have reached a decision. As the humans filed out of the chamber, Elena felt the weight of thousands of years of galactic peace pressing down on her shoulders. They had told the truth. They had been honest about humanity's nature, its history, its potential for both violence and peace. Now they would learn if honesty had been enough. The council's deliberation lasted 18 hours. Elena spent that time in her quarters, unable to sleep, running through every possible outcome. She thought about Earth, about humanity's dream of joining the galactic community, about how quickly it had all fallen apart. When the summons finally came, she walked to the Grand Council chamber with her head held high. Whatever judgment they passed, she would face it with dignity. The chamber was dimmer than before. Chancellor Zixthara's light pulsed slowly, almost sadly. The archivist floated at the center, ancient and implacable. Ambassador Vasquez, Zixthara began. The Galactic Concordate has reached a decision regarding humanity's petition to join our alliance. Elena braced herself. Your species is denied membership. Furthermore, Earth and all human colonies are to be placed under quarantine protocols. No human vessel will be permitted to travel beyond your designated systems. No contact will be allowed between humanity and concordate species. This quarantine will remain in effect indefinitely, subject to review every 50 standard years. The words hit like physical blows. Elena's team stood behind her in shocked silence. Captain Chen's jaw clenched so tight she could hear his teeth grinding. You're imprisoning us, Elena said, her voice hollow. "Locking us away like criminals for crimes we haven't committed. We are protecting the galaxy," the archivist responded. "Your species has potential for great harm. Until you prove otherwise over centuries of observation. This is our judgment." Elena felt something shift inside her. She had come here humble, eager to learn, willing to accept her species' place as newcomers. She had been honest about humanity's flaws. She had tried to bridge the gap between human and alien understanding, and they had judged humanity guilty for surviving. "No," she said quietly. The council chamber fell silent. "I'm sorry, what?" Zixthera asked. "No," Elena repeated, louder this time. "We came in peace. We answered your questions. We've committed no acts of aggression, except defending ourselves from an assassination attempt. You don't get to imprison us for being survivors. Ambassador, you do not understand." "I understand perfectly," Elena interrupted. "You've built your peaceful society by excluding anyone who reminds you that the universe is dangerous. You've had 3,000 years of harmony because you've never faced a real threat. Well, we've faced threats our entire existence, and we're still here." She stepped forward, her voice ringing through the chamber. "Earth is our world. The systems we've colonized are ours. We will leave this summit. We will return to our space. But we will not accept your quarantine. You have no choice," the archivist stated. "We have every choice," Elena countered. "You can try to enforce this quarantine, but understand what that means. You'll be the aggressors. You'll be the ones starting a conflict. Is that what your precious peace is worth?" Captain Chen spoke up, his voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. "Ambassador Vasquez speaks for Earth's government. But I speak for Earth's military. If you attempt to blockade our systems, we will defend ourselves." "That's not a threat. It's a statement of fact." The council erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. Security forces moved nervously to defensive positions. Chancellor Zixthera tried to restore order. Elena waited for silence. When it came, she spoke again. Softer this time. "We don't want war. We never did. But we won't accept imprisonment either. We're leaving. If you want peace with humanity, you know where to find us." The human delegation departed Harmony's Reach 12 hours later. The Concordat did not stop them, too shocked and divided to act. As the UNSS Venture slipped back through the gate network, Elena stood on the bridge, watching the station disappear from view. "What happens now?" one of her aides asked. "Now," Elena said, "we show them what humanity really is." The weeks that followed became legendary in both human and Concordat histories. Human exploration vessels, using data gathered during the summit, reverse-engineered improvements to FTL drives. They spread across local space like seeds on the wind, faster than the Concordat thought possible. Human colonies appeared on worlds the Concordat had dismissed as uninhabitable. High-gravity planets with crushing atmospheres. Ice worlds where temperatures dropped to extremes. Desert worlds where water was scarce. Radiation-soaked moons orbiting gas giants. Places where no Concordat species could survive without massive infrastructure. Humans thrived there with minimal support. Human traders made contact with independent species outside the Concordat. They offered technology, friendship, and fair deals. They didn't demand membership in human alliances or submission to Earth's authority. They simply traded as equals. And then came the incident that changed everything. The Kragnoth pirate armada had terrorized the Outer Rim for decades. A fleet of over 300 vessels, they raided colonies and shipping lanes with impunity. The Concordat had tried to stop them multiple times and failed. The pirates were too mobile, too numerous, too willing to target civilian populations. When the Kragnoth attacked the human colony on Kepler 442b, they expected easy prey. A new settlement, minimal defenses, population of only 10,000. They broadcasted their standard demands. Surrender all resources or face annihilation. The colony's response was simple. Come and take it. The battle lasted 47 minutes. Human defense forces, a mere 12 ships, engaged the pirate armada using tactics the Concordat had never seen. They didn't try to match the pirates in numbers. They used the planet's gravity well, its rings, and its moons as weapons. They calculated firing solutions with impossible precision. They coordinated with a level of efficiency that seemed almost telepathic. When it was over, the Kragnoth armada had been reduced to wreckage. No human ships were lost. The colony suffered 0 casualties. The message went out across every channel in the galaxy. The pirate threat to Kepler, 442b, has been neutralized. Any further attacks on human colonies will be met with lethal force. This is not negotiable. The Concordat watched the footage in stunned silence. They analyzed the human tactics, the precision, the overwhelming effectiveness. A military force they had dismissed as ceremonial had destroyed a threat that had plagued them for decades. Chancellor Zix Thara contacted Earth directly, bypassing all diplomatic protocols. Elena answered the call from the United Earth Alliance headquarters in Geneva. Ambassador. Zix Thara's voice was different now, less certain. I'm listening, Elena said. We may have made a mistake. The Council wishes to reconsider humanity's status. I see. And why the change of heart? Zix Thara's light dimmed. Because we realize now what you tried to tell us. You are not conquerors. You are survivors. And the galaxy needs survivors. Explain. An hour ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected something emerging from dark space. Something old. Something that destroyed a listening post just by passing near it. We've sent expeditions to investigate. But, she paused, we've never faced a threat like this. We don't know how to fight. See, Elena felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of irony. And you think we do? Oh, you've been preparing for threats you've never met. You train for wars you hope never to fight. You survived when survival should have been impossible. Zix Thara's voice held a note Elena had never heard before. Hope. If anything can help us face this, it's humanity. And Elena stood and walked to the window, looking out over Earth's blue horizon. Humanity had gone to the Peace Summit, hoping to join the galactic community. They had been rejected, feared, called monsters for surviving. And now, that same community was asking for help. I'll need to speak with Earth's government, Elena said finally. But I can tell you our likely answer, which is, we'll help. Not because you deserve it. Not because you welcomed us. But because when faced with a threat to innocent lives, humans help. That's what we do. 50 years later, historians would point to this moment as the turning point. The threat from dark space was defeated, though at great cost. Humanity and the Concordat fought side by side, learning from each other. Aliens learned that humans were fierce protectors of their allies. Humans learned that cooperation could be as powerful as competition. The Concordat expanded to include humanity, not as junior members, but as full partners. Human explorers charted dangerous territories. Human colonists settled worlds others couldn't. Human soldiers stood watch against threats the galaxy had forgotten could exist. And on a memorial station built where the first battle had been fought, a plaque bore a quote from Ambassador Elena Vasquez. You invited us to a peace summit and called us monsters for surviving. We showed you what humanity really is, neighbors you want on your side when the universe shows its teeth. Chancellor Zix Thara visited that memorial often in her later years. She would stand before it, light refracting through her crystalline form, remembering the day she learned that monsters and guardians sometimes look exactly the same. The difference, she had learned, was which side they chose to fight on, and humanity had chosen